Okay, the next line that I want to put on is the line we're using rigging plan 3, and it goes from the end of the bowsprit, the bottom there, passes through this block and then is tied off on here. So I've been thinking about what's the easiest way of doing that, and I think the easiest thing is to attach it at this end first, then pass it through the block and then tie it off and trim any excess at the end. So that is my plan. But it's actually going to be easier to rig it through the block first and then adjust it. So that's what we're going to do. Let me just find, there we go. So we're going to start by threading it through the block. Like so. There you go, that's free running. And I'm going to make a loop, turn that into a knot. And we want the line to be coming out at the bottom really. So pull that tight. There we go. And then a small amount of CA glue just on the knot there, just to hold everything together. There we go. I've massively overestimated how much we needed for this. And then we need the block to move up, and then we wrap it round that head, and then gonna wrap it around again. There we go. Once you've got it wrapped round once, make sure you've got it sat at the bottom. Pull your line through it tight, make sure it's nice and taut. There we go. Then we can wrap it around again. And a third time. Now, oh come on. When you go round a third time, if I can just catch this. There we go. So we've gone round 3 times there. And what I actually want to do is pass this line through the third and second wraps, so that as you pull it tight, the top loop around locks this into place, and it needs to be going off in a direction so it's hanging over there. So am I happy that we're tight enough? No. Right, I'm happy that's tight enough now, so I'm just going to put a spot of glue in just to hold that where I want it. Perfect. Give it a sec. Wrap it around again, careful we don't knock anything off. And then this third wrap, the one we were just talking about, that's the most difficult, because you're making a loop and you need the loop to be loose and not pop off. And that's easier said than done. So what I usually do is leave the loop really big, keep my finger on the top so it doesn't come off, pass the line through, so from top through to bottom, hoping this is being picked up on the camera, pull it tight in the direction we want it to hang. There we go, like that. Sorry, it's really difficult to film this and not have your hands in the way. So if I pull that tight now, just get it through there. I can pull that tight now, glue that into position, but I want it to hang. So we'll put a little weight on it, little crocodile clip, just to make that hang down. And then we'll put glue in and hold it into position. Right, where's my glue? There we go. So I just have to hold that for a moment. So that's that line on now. So we can just trim it. Job done. So that is just what I wanted to do on the bowsprit for now, and now I want to turn my attention to the lower boom. So let's have a look at that. Okay, time to put the rigging on the top boom, and we're going to start. We have this line that comes off the end here, passes through this upper block, then drops, terminates at a block, and then you've got a block and tackle between it. So we're going to start by attaching the block on the bottom there. So we're going to do this this is going to be a little bit more complicated way of doing it because the eye is already installed. What I'll show you in future builds is how to look ahead and actually attach your blocks to the eyes before you put the eye in the deck, which is so much easier. The other thing that you could do is you could chemically blacken one of the hooks, Photo Etch 4, and attach that to the block and then attach that to your eye. That would be perfectly acceptable. It's not what's shown in the instructions, however, so we're going to tie the block on, but that's a good way of doing it. I think. Anyway, let's follow the instructions because that's what we've sort of said we would do. So I'm just going to plop that up so I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to try and get you in, but I don't know how easy it's going to be. So that'll have to do. So I'll do my best. So what we've got is a little single block that needs to be attached to there. Right, you've seen me do what we need to do next before. I'm just going to make a loop on our jig and tie a block. And what we'll do is we'll leave the ends of the block untied so we can tie it onto the eye. So I'll tie the block and I'll show you the block before we attach it. So I've done our block, we've got the loop at the top, the block is tied in, and then what we'll do is we'll use these two ends to tie that to the eye. So let's have a go at doing that. Let's get this lot out of my way. So we'll take one line, where's my tweezers, and pass the line through the eye. There we go. So I've got that passed through, so we'll just pull the block over. Bring the other line around. So much harder because I have to have this in a position where I can get the camera to it. Because I really want this right up close to my face so my head's right over it, and I can't do that with the camera because you just won't see what's going on. So I'm going to try and make a knot. I'm trying to do it without getting my arms in the way, and it's just not realistic. I think I'm going to have to do it off camera and show you what I've done. Okay, so I've got the block on. The process pretty much is the same as what we did for the upper boom in terms of lashing it down and what have you. Now we have a block and we have sort of a tackle that goes between a block and a line, so we now need to put the line on from the end of the boom, which then drops down to here. So that goes into a larger block, so we're just going to have a look at that. I think that's a double block that hangs off there. Let's just see. D 4mm double block, so that's an F12. Okay, just like the upper boom where we were able to film it and not being able to here, it's just too pokey. I have attached a line. This is the line that's going to go through the block. So what we've got to do now is do a line for this block. So the block has been threaded. When I say threaded, I mean I've created an eye on it so it's ready to be added. So that's the double block. So what we've got to do now is get a line from the end of the boom through that block and then tie it off at the height we want for the double block. So I'm going to measure the line, how much line we need. So not against the plan, against reality. Depending on how high I want that. We need enough space for this little block and tackle here as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure the line. We're going to then tie the block, having threaded it through the upper block, and then tie it off there where we've got free access. So that'll be the way to do it. Tie the block, thread it through, and adjust the length at the end of the boom. So that's what we're going to do. I don't know how much of that you got on camera, but at least you heard me talking. So the line we're using for that is N3. N3 is F16, which is this thicker line. So question is, where do I want this upper boom to end? I need enough space for a block below it and a tackle length, so I'm thinking about there. So we need a little bit of line to be able to tie it off, so not much, sort of that, and it's going to go from the cleats up to that block at the top, like so, and then it's going to go down to about this height here, maybe there, and then we've got to loop it around the block. So I think about that. So we've cut our line. So next thing for me is to thread it through that upper block, and then we'll I suppose we could attach it to this block first, so let's do that. So you've seen me do this before, so I'm not sure that I need to put this on camera, but we'll basically thread the eye, run the line through. Don't know what happened there. Try again. Okay. And then I just need to tie that off, and then we're ready to thread that through the upper block. So I'll do that off camera. You've seen me do it before. It's just a couple of tie-offs, glue them down, and away we go. Okay, so I've threaded our line through the upper block here. So looking at the plans, and it doesn't have to be bob on, but around about 6.5 centimeters between the two blocks, which is about there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna clamp the block to the mast, if I can. Come on, there we go. And that'll just hold it while I pull that tight, and then I can tie this off on my boom at the height I want and lift the boom up. So I hope that makes sense. So my line is coming down there like that, and then I'm tying it off on the cleats there. So you get the general idea. I'm not going to show you me tying it off, it's just tying a knot and gluing it, and it's so difficult for me to film. I'm only going to try and film things that you've not seen me do so far. But what we'll do is we'll tie it off on the cleats and give ourselves enough height for a decent bit of tackle and block there. So that's what I'm going to do. I'll do it off camera and then I'll show you afterwards. Okay, so I've tied it off on the end of the boom. Just going to put some glue on our knots. Just make sure nothing unravels. There we go. Now the boom is free to go from side to side until we've put this block and tackle on here, which will keep it rigid. But I want to do the one at this end first. So that's our next job. So we're nearly there with that. So we can undo that block now, and we've got the line already attached to the lower block, so all we have to do is thread it through the double block. So we're going to thread it through one of these, probably actually best if we make sure I've got the right one. Yeah, nearly threaded the wrong line because I've got a block hanging down for one of the spars, so let's just get that out of the way before I make a mess. There we go. Right, so just double check. Yeah, okay, so we want to put this through so that the line goes from bow to stern, if that makes sense. There we go. Don't need to pull it tight just yet. Makes it easier to thread if things are loose, and then we tighten it up afterwards. And then that line is going to go from the stern side to the bow. This is important because the line terminates behind the block, so if you threaded it the other way, the line would be coming down in the wrong direction and it'd look wrong when you tied it off. And then thread the next line through. Just be careful you've not got it wrapped around your little swivel guns. There we go. So that's loosely done. We are tying it off on here. So first things first, just gonna tighten it up a little bit. Now at this point, as I tighten it, I will actually raise the rear boom because it's doing what it should do. So I need to be careful of that. I think I have just pulled it down a little bit, so I'm just going to slacken it off a little bit. Don't want the boom too high, so get the boom right. Okay. So what we're going to do is, once again, we're going to get the block and just clamp it to the mast. That's going to stop the block from moving while we tighten it up, and then you'll get a little bit of a drop when we're done because the block will swing back into place. So line goes up, that's tight, yeah. And then all we need to do now is tie it off on the bits. You've seen me do that before, so I'm not going to film that either, but you've got the idea. I mean, it's exactly the same as we've done with the block and tackle on the upper boom, so it's just repetitive. And we're getting to that point where you've seen everything, it's just I'll show you as much as I can because it's a beginner's one. So as we let go of that, it'll look loose, but what will happen is it will tighten up. It's caught on a parabol bead. It will tighten up like so. We pull it through that block there, nice and tight, and then when we do this block at the back on the that'll just tighten everything up and it'll be lovely. So happy with that. I'm going to take a little photograph so you can see what that looks like at the bottom there. Okay, I will come back to you when I'm prepared and set up and ready to go. I'm probably going to put the block on first, and then I'll get back to you when I'm ready to thread it all up. So with my block attached on the bottom, and I've attached the line, you've seen us do that before, we can now put this through the block at the top. I want to go through the front to the back on this one so that the line comes out the back when we tie it off. So threading the eye that's furthest away from me first. There we go. And then we need to thread through the block at the bottom. There we go. Oh, thread's got caught, so rather than travelling with it, it's getting pulled out. There we go. And then we can thread it back through the top block again. And then all we've got to do is tighten it up. Like so. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a weight on the end. In this case, some self-locking tweezers. Make sure this is nice and tight. There we go, that looks good. And now I'm just checking that the rest of the boom line is tight, all the way up to the top block and back down to this block. Yeah, all looks good. So we're ready to tie that off now. So it's the same process as we've done on the other bits at the front, so I'm not going to show you because you need to be right in here with the camera, and I just can't do that. So I will tie it off and then I'll take you a photograph and you can see what that looked like. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to go through the back, wrap it around, tie it off, and have our rope hanging over the front there. So that is our boom rigged in and put in place, and it's now nice and solid. So I'm just going to take a picture of what we've done there with the block and tackle at the end, and then you can have a look at that. So with the boom done, I guess we're probably on the shrouds. I need to have a look. Oh, there's the lines from the spars that need to be done first, I think, because they are behind the shrouds, so easier to do those now. So that's the next job, and I'll be back to you in a moment.